Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care. In the expansive war room of Earth Central Command, President Jane Holloway stood before a large holoscreen displaying the faces of the Zintharian delegation. The atmosphere buzzed with frustration. Advisors shifted restlessly in their chairs, their eyes scanning the room, anticipating her next words. "These negotiations are going nowhere," she declared, her voice resonating against the steel walls. Tension hung thick in the air, each member of her team acutely aware of the stakes involved. The Zintharians had repeatedly violated the terms of previous treaties, encroaching on human territories and even abducting civilians. Holloway had reached the end of her rope, as images of Zintharian ships gliding ominously near Earth flashed across the holoscreen. She recalled the first clandestine meeting held years ago when peace seemed a tangible goal. They had agreed on mutual cooperation, sharing technological advancements and cultural exchanges. Yet, as hollow words floated through interstellar space, trust disintegrated. Holloway's thoughts drifted to her childhood in a small town on Earth, where the eldest spoke of wars fought and won, of sacrifices made for freedom. She grew up with those stories fueling her admiration for leaders who stood unwavering against oppression. Now it was her turn to carry that weight. One of her advisors rose, breaking her reverie. General Ryan Morgan, a seasoned strategist with a solid reputation, spoke with urgency. "Ma'am, if we don't take a stand, our people will lose faith. The time for diplomacy has passed." His words stirred a mix of anger and resolution inside her. "I understand, General," she replied, her resolve crystallizing. "But sending our forces into an uncertain conflict is a gamble. We must consider the ramifications." Just then, an urgent message beeped, flashing across the holoscreen. An alert bell chimed as a Zintharian battle fleet had approached the border. Members of her staff exchanged tense glances. There was no more time for discussion. Holloway's heart raced. It was clear. The time for talking had ended. It was time to prepare Earth for war. The interstellar conference hall was illuminated by a dim blue light, the atmosphere charged with anticipation as President Holloway addressed the assembly of galaxies. Delegates from various alien civilizations waited expectantly, their eyes sharp and their minds focused on her words. She had prepared for this moment, a speech that outlined humanity's commitment to peace. However, the Zintharian leader, a towering figure with shimmering scales, interrupted her with derisive laughter, towering over the podium. "Your promises are meaningless, President Holloway. You are weak. We will take what we desire, and there is nothing you can do to stop us." Gasps rippled through the audience, but Holloway maintained her composure. "We are not here to engage in accusations," she retorted, her voice imbued with steadiness. "Our mutual interests can lead to prosperity rather than conflict." Yet the Zintharian leader laughed again, dismissively waving his hand. "You think diplomacy can save you? Look at your puny, fragmented alliances." His words stung, a tangible assault to her diplomatic efforts. Holloway felt the heat of humiliation, but more than that, a fierce inner resolve ignited. Later, as the shadows of the conference hall consumed her, Holloway retreated to a private chamber, her thoughts racing. The encounter had pushed the boundaries of her patience and resolve. Surrounded by the stark walls, she confronted herself, weighing her action against inaction, fear against bravery. After hours of deliberation with her closest advisors, Holloway gathered herself to face them. "I will not let my people live in fear," she announced, a fire igniting in her chest. "If they see us as weak, they will exploit us. We must defend ourselves, even if it means war." A heavy silence filled the room as her words hung in the air, bearing the crushing gravity of her decision. Insulted and angered, her advisors looked to her for direction, and in that moment, Jane Holloway stepped into the role of a true leader, one willing to confront the darkness. With the weight of her decision pressing against her heart, President Holloway stood before the people of Earth, cameras focused solely on her. The vast amphitheater behind her radiated a sense of hope and desperation, filled with citizens eager to hear from their commander-in-chief. The air vibrated with anticipation as she stepped up to the podium. Holloway's gaze swept across the multitudes, families, soldiers, the mourning faces of those who had lost loved ones to the Zintharians. "My fellow Earthlings," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Today, we stand at a crucial juncture in our history." Her powerful words stirred a connection. "For too long, we have silenced our voices, hoping for peace in the face of tyranny. The Zintharians have made their intentions clear. They will not stop until they have taken from us what is rightfully ours." As murmurs echoed through the crowd, she tapped into their fears and aspirations, painting a picture of unity and resilience. "We must no longer cower behind the walls of diplomacy. We are humanity. We must rise together. I will not allow our children to live under the cloud of oppression." Cheers erupted. A surge of overwhelming pride and defiance poured forth from the crowd. "Today, I call upon each and every one of you to stand firm." She raised her fist in solidarity, heart racing with the energy of the moment. "Let us prepare for war, if war is what they seek." Holloway paused, her eyes scanning the audience, gauging their reactions. Their spirits ignited the fire within her. "We will defend our freedom, we will fight for our future, and we will succeed." As her speech concluded, a roar of applause erupted, a wave of passionate unity washing over her. Citizens waved flags and shouted their promises of support. In that instant, President Holloway saw the strength of humanity. She had opened the floodgates, reigniting hope and determination that seemed unstoppable. Within days of her rousing call to arms, Earth's military forces fell into a feverish state of readiness. Training camps buzzed with the energy of eager soldiers donning their uniforms, while scientists toiled tirelessly in labs, developing new technologies to give humanity an edge against their formidable foes. President Holloway stood in the heart of the military base, observing young recruits performing rigorous drills. The sound of boots marching in unison echoed. Sweat glistened on their brows, reflecting determination. Each soldier had their own story. Some came from agricultural backgrounds, while others hailed from cities teeming with life. The diversity within the ranks represented the unity the president had appealed for. General Ryan Morgan, her most trusted military advisor, approached her. "Ma'am, we need to finalize our strategy if we're going to respond to the Zintharians appropriately." He gestured to a series of holographic projections showcasing advances in spacecraft, weapon technology, and intelligence. "This technology," he continued, "may give us the upper hand, especially if we can leverage our new allies." His expression was serious. Each word was a lifeline thrown into choppy waters. "The Zintharians won't fight fair. We need to anticipate everything they might throw at us." "Show me all operational tactics we can implement," she replied. "Every advantage must be counted. We can't afford to underestimate them again." In the days that followed, the military conducted drills that pushed soldiers to their limits, highlighting not only their physical endurance, but also their mental tenacity. Holloway observed firsthand the camaraderie between troops as they shared exhilarating moments of victory during simulated battles, learning from mistakes and rallying together after setbacks. Meanwhile, in laboratories across Earth, scientists raced against time to develop advanced weapon systems. Fast-paced scenes included engineers working late into the night, focused and unyielding, as prototypes for plasma rifles and energy shields rolled off the assembly line. A brilliant scientist named Dr. Lena Torres became pivotal, her innovative designs making the weapons far more potent than previously anticipated. Outside the confines of training, the nation came alive, citizens rallying together. A series of broadcasts educated the public on how they could help. Families gathered supplies for soldiers, schools organized fundraising events for defense projects, and artists created motivational banners to be hung across towns. As humanity prepared for the oncoming storm, President Holloway held strategic meetings with both military leaders and scientists, ensuring that every corner of the Earth mobilized against the Zintharian threat. She made surprise visits to battalions, her presence invigorating the troops, fostering an atmosphere of belief that they could win. The momentum was building, yet, as Holloway reflected during quiet moments, she couldn't shake the gnawing doubt. Would it be enough? Only time would tell as the galaxy braced for war. Weeks had passed since President Holloway declared an official stance of war against the Zintharians. The time for preparations was at an end, and the offensive would begin soon. The military's advanced fleet gathered at the borders of Earth's atmosphere, ready to defend and reclaim territories lost to the Zintharian encroachment. It was on a stark, gray morning that the first skirmish unfolded. Alarms blared across the command center as an unexpected fleet of Zintharian ships appeared on their radar, breaching the borders with aggressive intent. Chaos erupted. Orders were shouted, officers scrambled, and Holloway stood resolute, at the helm directing the counterattack from the base. "Deploy the fleet," she commanded, confidence coursing through her. The mission was clear. They would distract the Zintharians long enough for the more vulnerable colonies to evacuate. With commanders relaying orders, fighters soared into the atmosphere, with the hopes of humanity resting heavily on their shoulders. As the ships lifted off, gunfire erupted. Holloway held her breath, focused on her monitors, and watched as the battle unfolded in real time. Earth's pilot, Lieutenant Sam Carter, executed daring maneuvers in his sleek fighter, dodging laser blasts from alien vessels. His colleagues shouted encouragement amidst the flying debris, their unity palpable even in the chaos. The fight was intense, each second dragging out into an eternity. Drones flanked Zintharian warships, catching them off guard with aerial bombardments. Holloway felt pride surge within her. These soldiers were not losing hope. But as the first wave of human fighters encountered Zintharian infantry, she felt dread creep in. Zintharian ships unleashed their full onslaught, a combination of brute strength and technological prowess. A dark shadow spread across the holographic map as humanity's forces took losses, slowly overtaken. The staccato of alarms grew louder, echoing in her ears, each one a life lost. Holloway's heart raced as Lieutenant Carter's voice crackled through her comm. "We're taking hits, ma'am. We need support. Requesting immediate backup." "Damn it!" The chill of fear gripped her. "Reinforcements now." She issued urgent commands, desperately scrambling to send backup to the front lines. Just then, a Zintharian ship targeted Carter's fighter. Holloway inhaled sharply, her heart breaking as she watched the explosion flash on the screen. "No, Sam!" she bellowed, realizing the risk had become too real. Amidst the chaos, human soldiers fought valiantly, pushing against the tide of alien forces, driven by the belief that they fought not only for survival, but for their very existence. As the dust began to settle, the surviving soldiers rallied together with fierce determination. The first skirmish would mark a turning point, a bloody initiation into the larger conflict ahead. Holloway knew sacrifices would be made, but that morning's clash was merely the precursor for what lay ahead. War had begun. After the chaotic first skirmish, strings of tactical intelligence began to flow back to Earth. President Holloway huddled with General Morgan in the war room, poring over analyzed data. The pain of loss hung heavily in the air, but they knew they had to think strategically to avoid further casualties. "They're adapting," Morgan said, pushing a holographic image of a Zintharian battle plan into the air. "Their maneuvers are more organized than expected. They anticipate our moves. We can't afford to fight them head-on without a substantial strategy to counter their tactics." Holloway took a deep breath, frustration boiling within. "Then we need to outthink them." She leaned closer to examine the map, indicating key locations of previous battles. "Let's analyze their strategy. Where do they strike hardest? What do they care about? If they're after resources, then we can use that against them." Discussion continued late into the night. The Zintharians seemed to employ a method of psychological warfare, targeting civilian structures to instill fear and demoralize Earth's population. Holloway could feel the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, aggravating her uncertainty. Amidst the tense strategizing, dissent began to seep through the chain of command. Senator Diana Reid, an outspoken opponent of war, shaken from the recent losses, stepped into the war room, her demeanor a mix of urgency and fury. "Jane, this is madness. We're losing too many lives. We should be seeking peace, not escalating tensions." Ignoring the senator's sentiments, Holloway reminded her, "They do not seek peace, Diana. The Zintharians only respect strength. If we back down now, we will ensure our destruction. We owe it to our fallen not to let their sacrifices be in vain. Yet each loss weighed heavily on Holloway's heart. The fact that her decisions led to the deaths of brave souls gnawed at her conscience. On the eve of a new offensive, she resolved to find a way to minimize casualties while planning a more effective countermeasure. Yet, as the final battle approach loomed, she understood something crucial lay within not just military tech, but also the indomitable human spirit. Days turned into weeks as the war raged on, and Earth's spaceship fleet sought alliances with lesser-known alien civilizations that had been marginalized by the Xantharians. President Holloway knew that forging these alliances could shift the balance of power, a vital necessity if Earth hoped to survive. In a dimly lit chamber at Earth Command, Holloway prepared for a historic meeting, aware that the dangers of establishing communication played heavily on her mind. The prospects could bring both hope and risks. Could they trust these unknown allies? One by one, delegates from various alien worlds gathered, each representing factions that had suffered at the hands of the Xantharians. Holloway, filled with trepidation but driven by a fierce determination, stepped forward. "We understand your pain," she began, her voice ringing clear. "We have all lost too much, but together we stand a chance against the oppressors." An ethereal being, shimmering with light, stepped forward. "And what can you offer us in return? Your people are resilient, but without resources, even unity cannot win this war." "Access to technology, training, support, and shared intelligence," Holloway replied. "Earth's ingenuity, along with your advanced tactics and abilities, could prove transformational. We can fight back against tyranny together." The room buzzed with cautious optimism. One delegate, a grizzled veteran of the Xantharian Wars, shared stories of steadfast resistance and resilience, igniting the spirits of those gathered. Laughter and camaraderie formed between the representatives, a flicker of hope amidst the turmoil. Hours passed, and by the end of the meeting, a coalition had been forged, a pact determined to end the oppression of the Xantharians. Allies willing to share their strengths and resources to balance the scales against the greater threat. As the alliance solidified, Holloway felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Supporting them might prove vital for victory. Perhaps together they could avert destruction and forge a path toward peace with their unity. A pivotal battle loomed on the horizon as newly allied forces prepared for their joint offensive against the Xantharian fleet. The atmosphere was electric, charged with nervousness intertwined with exhilaration. This upcoming clash was essential, a chance to reclaim territory lost and show the enemies that humanity had teeth. Holloway stood at the command center, strategizing alongside General Morgan and representatives from allied civilizations. Holographic projections displayed intricate maps and schematics detailing formations and placements. "Our forces will take the lead," Morgan instructed confidently. "Xantharians tend to underestimate their opponents when overconfident." Holloway knew it was true. The Allied forces had one significant advantage: surprise. They would hit the Xantharians from multiple fronts, an overwhelming force seeking to catch the enemy off guard. Each faction brought unique abilities, and together they offered a force greater than the sum of its parts. As dawn broke on the day of battle, ships readied themselves for departure, their shields glowing fiercely. Lieutenant Sam Carter, having survived the first skirmish, was now one of the lead pilots for the operation. His features hardened with focus as he prepared himself for the fight ahead. When the fleet launched, adrenaline coursed through every pilot's veins. As they approached the enemy territory, Carter recalled destructed ships, fallen comrades, and the faces of those he had fought for. He shared a silently understood bond with his fellow pilots, a promise of loyalty that united them in their mission. In the control room, Holloway monitored the movements of her forces, gripping the console as the ships made contact. Laser beams sliced through the chaos of the battlefield. The sound of battle roared outside as Allied ships maneuvered in perfect synchronization, catching the Xantharians off guard as anticipated. The tide quickly began to turn. Allied troops surged forward with renewed strength. Each victory ignited fierce unity among the humans and their new allies. Yet amidst the triumph, Xantharians retaliated, their tenacity unyielding. The battle raged on for hours, an epic clash of strategy and willpower, showcasing overwhelming resourcefulness. Holloway held her breath, analyzing the battle, watching as her allies fought valiantly alongside her troops. But amid their advances, the Zintharians unleashed an unexpected counterattack. Their forces rallied, launching a desperate assault against the Allies. Holloway's heart sank as she witnessed the dark shadows inch closer, realizing this fight was far from over. This was only the beginning. Days after the passionate initial victories, the rhythm of war settled into an uneasy cadence. Humanity and their newfound allies had experienced exhilarating victories, but soon darkness loomed overhead as the Zintharians launched an enormous counteroffensive, catching President Holloway and her forces off guard. Alarms rang throughout Earth Command, panic swiftly infiltrating the ranks. "Ma'am, we've received reports of troop movements on multiple fronts," a hurried officer exclaimed, blood draining from his face. The news was stark. Zintharian forces had regrouped and were launching strikes across various strategic locations, aiming to reclaim lost ground. Holloway's jaw tightened. She knew they'd underestimated the Zintharians' ability to recover. Joint forces dispersed to prevent being overwhelmed, but frenzied energy coursed through the command as new orders were hastily issued. The battle raged through the nights, explosions lighting the darkness like stars crashing into each other. Holloway trained her focus on the screen, observing each allied faction as they fought ferociously. The cries of soldiers echoed through her mind, mixed with powerful determination and escalating fear. On the battlefield, Lieutenant Sam Carter led his squadron. Engaging with enemy fighters, their ships darted, but the Zintharians displayed terrifying superiority, launching retaliatory strikes with unnerving efficiency. In the chaos, even seasoned pilots began to fall. Despair mounted as each casualty chipped away at the morale of the forces. "We need a strategy," Carter yelled, desperately trying to rally his colleagues. "We can't let them push us back. Remember what we fight for." His words echoed within his own heart as he navigated through the chaos, navigating burning debris and damaged ships. Yet for every effort they made, another Allied ship spiraled into oblivion. Back at the command center, Holloway's worry warred with determination. Aware their forces could soon fracture under the increasing weight of loss, she spurred Morgan and the remaining commanders. "We must regroup, find a new strategy. We can't lose any more lives without attempting to strike back." Once again, Holloway reached deep into the essence of her leadership, glaring at the holographic map. Her heart ached at the losses, but a flicker ignited within her. "Redirect any surviving fighters to support our extraction units. We need to vacate our infrastructures, regroup and repurpose for emotional resilience." Every second felt like an eternity, but with her directives, they slowly began carving their way, pushing for an escape route, a chance to pull back and conserve what remained. But the Zintharians pressed on fiercely, detecting vulnerability and attacking without mercy. As the dire reality filled the air, Holloway realized they needed to tap into something deeper, a hope, a belief that they could turn this counterattack around. This was more than just battles. It was a reflection of humanity's spirit. She would gather her forces once more and reignite their belief, no matter how daunting the obstacle ahead. In the wake of relentless struggles and heavy losses, President Holloway found the remnants of hope within humanity. Reports flooded in, revealing staggering casualties on both sides. This dark hour would define not just their resilience, but their unity in the face of adversity. Colonel Hargrove, one of Holloway's trusted leaders, watched over the remaining troops, assessing the mood amid dwindling numbers. "Morale is slipping, ma'am," he reported, a sense of concern lacing his voice. "We need to do something before it's too late." Holloway nodded, her heart heavy. "Let's gather the troops for a message. They must know what we fight for." The determination to uplift spirits propelled her forward, even when doubt lingered in the back of her mind. The gathering took place in a large hangar, filled to capacity with battered yet defiant faces. As Holloway approached the makeshift stage, she connected with the eyes of the soldiers, a medley of fear, exhaustion, and unwavering commitment. "Everyone listen to me," she began, her voice steady but brimming with emotion. "I understand that these losses hurt. We have sacrificed much, but we are not alone. The essence of what we fight for runs deeper than this battlefield. It is about every person waiting for us back home, our families, friends, the lives we cherish. We are humanity. The crowd stirred, seeing reflections of themselves in her raw vulnerability. What we achieve here isn't just about survival. It's about fighting against oppression, about building a world where every life is valued, not stripped away. Voices began to rise in a chorus of agreement. Some soldiers held up arms, chanting, "For Earth! For humanity!" The seeping fear in the hangar glimmered, morphing into unity. Holloway saw camaraderie build before her eyes. The earlier despair manifested into an undeniable force of resilience. I want all of you to think of those you fight for, those whose voices are living in our hearts. We can overcome this. I urge you to fight not just for Earth but for each other. Let that bond be what drives us forward. Together, we shall emerge victorious. Cheers erupted, instilling something profound within each soldier. They had regained their strength, united beneath the flag of hope. President Holloway drew a breath, feeling empowered once more. They would face the trials ahead, not alone, but shoulder to shoulder. After a rekindling of hope and spirit among her forces, President Holloway focused her efforts on the final preparations for a decisive counteroffensive against the Xantharians. Plans were reshaped, tactics refined, and alliances fortified to ensure their strategy would go off without a hitch. In the war room, commanders strategized tirelessly, poring over newly calculated tactics and logistics. Holographic displays filled every corner, tracing potential enemy formations and movements. General Morgan reported calculations that exploited Xantharian vulnerabilities, laying out plans for a multi-pronged attack. "We combine forces at these 3 key locations," Morgan insisted, his voice resonating with authority. "If we tug the Xantharians into each trap, we can afford to dismantle their ranks effectively while limiting casualties." Commander Lin, representing one of the Allied civilizations, expressed apprehension. "The Xantharians will react violently, and collaterals could be massive." Yet the stakes were high. Hollow voices echoed the loss of too many lives. Holloway had witnessed the ferocity of their enemies firsthand. "Then we weigh the risk against the innocent lives lost. If we approach this as before, we invite our demise." The gathered strategists exchanged glances, rallying behind her vision, renewed their purpose as they meticulously plotted every course of action hour after hour. This effort would require a combination of reallocation, proper communication, and laser focus on human tenacity. Meanwhile, off the command center, soldiers prepared for battle, bonding over shared stories of their elaborate plans. The camaraderie spurred on their ambitious efforts. Groups of pilots running drills, ground units coordinating intricate maneuvers, engineering teams energizing every ship with the latest weapons developed in prior months. As she moved among the troops, Holloway could feel the collective heartbeat of determination. Each rallying cry filled the air, reverberating louder than the fear instilled by the enemy. Out in the field, they enlisted not just what bound them to duty, but what drove them forward, a united goal to reclaim their freedom. Holloway knew the initial losses would not be in vain. As the hour drew near, she looked at her troops and felt the fire within, heavy hearts filled with the drive to restore peace against oppression. The battle was coming. They would face it together. As night cloaked the realm of stars, a haunting stillness filled the air, the calm before a storm. President Holloway, gauging the mood of her assembled forces, could feel the pulse of apprehension bearing down upon those gathered in the command center. Their mission, pivotal and monumental, rested heavily on their shoulders as Earth and its allies prepared to launch their most decisive strike against the Xantharians. "On my mark," General Morgan spoke into the sea of focused faces. "We strike at dawn. We will be the tide that pushes them back, liberating those lands that were unjustly taken." At first light, swirling ships brimming with determination emerged from Earth's atmosphere, forming a united front with their new allies. The labyrinth of spacecraft created a brilliant tapestry against the canvas of stars. They had become more than soldiers. They were a coalition forged through struggle and unity. As they approached the Xantharian stronghold, the first shots were fired, brilliant beams illuminating the darkness. Rosy explosions lit the void as ships danced through explosions and retaliatory blasts. With clarity, Holloway monitored the battle from the command center, a fusion of chaos and strategy woven into the tapestry of conflict. "Visuals are coming in, ma'am," an officer shouted. "Xantharian forces have locked on. Brace for impact." Burning debris spiraled past, and Earth's pilots responded with synchronized elegance, their organization astonishing. Lieutenant Carter navigated his fighter as if it were an extension of himself, dodging incoming fire through the frantic maelstrom. He could feel the weight of his comrades amid him, a powerful reminder that they fought not just as individuals, but as a team. Carter barked orders through the comms. "Keep formation tight, engage as planned." His pulse raced, and he focused on the mission. Overhead, Xantharian forces regrouped under the sheer strain, the tide shifting slowly in Earth's favor. Back at command, celebrations echoed between officers when reports came flooding in. The Xantharians were struggling against the massive coalition, their arrogance and overconfidence crumbling. Yet, amidst the auspicious victories, destruction shamelessly loomed. Holloway forced herself to observe the losses. They were significant, and the weight racked her heart. With their strongest line assaulted, the Xantharians retaliated with ferocious strikes, using desperate measures that destabilized the battlefield. Bombing runs slammed down like thunder, and pain struck across the ranks. Holloway felt her heart drop as she absorbed reports of fallen allies, their sacrifice etched in her unshed tears. "Push forward, reinforce our allies," she rallied, steeling her resolve, unwilling to allow their effort to fade. Just as despair threatened to creak into the cracks of morality, President Holloway leaned into the aspect of humanity's resilience. "For every soul lost, we fight harder." She knew they would seize the day following bloodshed. With renewed vigor, Earth's forces pressed ahead, moving into the eerie calm of chaos. The shift had become palpable. Soldiers clung to hope born out of pain, surrounding their fallen brothers and sisters, carrying forth a legacy powered by resolve. Hours felt like days, but amidst this last stand, bonds were tightened, and voices rose with fierce determination. The tide had indeed turned, the coalition pressing forward, ready to reclaim humanity's lost lands. A pivotal clash unfolded. The darkness that consumed those fought against began to stagger. Holloway dared to hope. Push through. For every gain restored stands a future. When the sun rose over a battlefield marked with the remnants of a fierce struggle, it illuminated a transformed landscape. Despite the harrowing losses, a unified front declared their victory against the Xantharians, a testament to the resilience and spirit of humanity and its allies. President Holloway stood at the podium, her voice echoing through the venerated hall where soldiers and civilians alike had gathered to commemorate their victory. She observed the faces before her, battle-scarred yet vibrant, each one a symbol of hope that had emerged from despair. "We have witnessed the strength of our unity," she began, her voice a balm for the wounded souls lingering amongst the ranks. "Today is a testament that we can overcome oppression. Each and every one of you represents the courage it takes to fight back against tyranny." Thunderous applause erupted, reverberating off the walls. Holloway looked around, the faces of her soldiers etched with both pride and loss. They understood the price of victory, the lines upon their faces telling stories of both grief and triumph. "We honor our fallen," she continued, her tone somber. "In the deepest moments of despair, we have found each other, drawing strength from memories of sacrifice." The commemoration of the fallen unfolded gently, dignifying those who had stood bravely, recounting their efforts and principled values, embroidering their stories into the hearts of the gathered. Holloway emphasized healing, the vital need for reconciliation between former enemies. The Xantharians must be given the chance for diplomacy to avoid the cycle of destruction from repeating. As the ceremony concluded, Holloway stepped down, feeling connections rekindle across the military and the multitude. Together they emerged, soldiers and civilians alike, united in the mission to rebuild not just their infrastructure, but their communities. While the fight had come with immeasurable costs, new alliances and friendships were forged amid the turmoil. The message resonated through the realms of both humanity and sentient allies. They would pursue cooperative efforts of peace and prosperity in the stars. The once ominous horizon now gleamed with possibility. Holloway turned to gaze at the distant skies. "Let this be our genesis," she whispered to herself, her heart ignited with hope. "We are prepared for whatever comes next. We remain stronger together." Ambition now illuminated the fabric of Earth and its allies as they charted their course for a new era, building roads toward peaceful encounters, guiding into the final frontier with courage in their hearts.